What is the dumbest war in history? The Roman Emperor Caligula declared war on the sea and ordered his men to collect seashells as spoils of war. The city of Huskar was at war with Denmark for 172 years because they forgot they were at war. The war between Denmark and Canada over Hans O, an island in the Arctic. 0 casualties. But soldiers from both countries took turns claiming the island with flags and leaving booze for the other team. It went on for years and was only resolved recently. Didn't the Florida Keys secede, declare war and capitulate in like an hour? The Conch Republic? Caligula's war against the sea deserves a mention here. Off the top of my head, the Emu War. The War of Jenkins' Ear 1739-1744. Fought between Britain and Spain. 25,000–35,000 dead on both sides in a war started because some guy got his ear cut off. I know it's more complex than that, but it does at least have the dumbest name. War on drugs. Ohio–Michigan War of 1835–1836 to decide who would have to take Toledo. Ohio lost some of this info here is true. The Anglo-Zanzibar War lasted about 45 minutes, resulting in a single British soldier wounded and 500 Zanzibari killed or wounded. The Lobster War in 1961. France and Brazil at war for 3 years over lobsters. The War of the Pig. A pre-Civil War U.S. Army versus the British Navy almost started fighting because a farmer didn't properly fence his pasture and shot a pig that made its way in. The Vietnam War. They sent kids into the jungle to die for nothing. The Emu War that took place in Australia in 1932. The government deployed machine guns against the emus. And, well, the emus kind of won. The 3-day Russian invasion of Ukraine. Whether Ukraine wins or loses, we're sure Russia isn't recovering from this one. It's almost 2024 now and I live in Ukraine. Ask a light question. Iraq War was totally unnecessary. I mentioned this in another thread, but it seems appropriate. The Great Windham Frog War. In 1754, Windham, Connecticut was still a frontier settlement. One hot night the residents awoke to gruesome sounds that convinced them that the local Indians were attacking. Throughout the night they strove to drive off the attackers with steady gunfire. In the morning they crept out to find thousands of dead frogs who had spent the night competing for the dwindling water. Rather than being ashamed, this has become a central part of the town's character. The town's symbol is a frog and the bridge is decorated with large frogs at each corner. WW1 shows how damaging alliances can be. I'd say WW1. It was insanely stupid and was not worth anywhere near the price it cost in lives. Generally every war, despite the rhetoric, is a few people wanting more money or to not lose their money so they get everyone else to fight for them. Most are dumb. The only that aren't are those people fighting invading armies. The war on poverty. The war on drugs. The war on hate. Any national internal war that a country waged against a concept instead of, another country. Pretty much all of them. Wars only beget more wars. The very famous Every War. Wine War. When TNA tried to take on the WWE for the Monday Night War II. The Great Emu War. Australia lost a war to a flightless bird. Tears of joy. World War I. An incredibly large loss of life, all because European governments wanted to have a go at each other. VHS versus Beta. The Football War. also known as the 100 Hours War because that's how long it lasted. A full-out war between Honduras and El Salvador all over a game of football. And like 223-ish people were killed from it. Anyone remember the 80s Cola Wars? Coke versus Pepsi? Heavy casualties on both sides. Troy battle. Fucking all of them. Not a single soldier has ever gotten anything but misery from fighting in a war. World War I should have just been a little quarrel between and Serbia. It's hard to ignore the dumbness of the imaginary annual war on Christmas. Falklands War. Argentina invaded an island owned by a more powerful country thinking that they won't fight back. Russia v. Ukraine. They've already lost more soldiers there than they did in Afghanistan. Or we did in Vietnam. As long as NATO is backstopping Ukraine, Russia can't win. War on hemp. War on drugs. After 9/11, when we went to war with Iraq, killing million innocent Iraqis, creating a power vacuum which led to ISIS killing another million Iraqis. All wars are stupid. The Cola War. There, I said it. Australia declared a war on emus and lost. Not a war, but the post-9/11 invasion of Iraq was a deplorable. Bin Laden lived in the hills of Afghanistan. However, US had an axe to grind with Saddam and lied about his weapons of mass destruction in a beautifully orchestrated full-court press on the UN Security Council and in the media. The world swallowed it. Hook, line and sinker. Currently happening 2 wars for sure. All of them. Probably the Bucket War. The year was 1997. GoldenEye 007 had just dropped on the Nintendo 64. My 4th grade class had no idea just how much this one title would shape the rest of our year and ultimately our lives. Boys would turn to men in a melee of ball busting and shit talking. Slappers only in the archives. We lost a lot of good men that year. When Australia lost to those birds. Wars over imaginary sky daddies are among the dumbest ones. I mean, territory? I get it. Xenophobia? Sure. Hate? Love? Greed? I understand. But my God likes to be worshipped this way versus my God, which is the same as yours, likes this instead. Dumb. The current Gaza war. The fact nobody's said Hamas war with Israel is a sign we've hit crazy town. This is not a reasonable war. The weaker people committed widespread atrocities that have only led to the stronger neighbor to lash out and likely obliterate their city and cause. What is more, the weaker party's regime is so weak. Many international observers still refuse to even call their army an army or regime a government. And all that said, Israel's own responsive strategy seems vicious and full of holes too. Winning hearts and minds by burning and killing. So to me, that one hits the cake. It was suicidal. The Great Emu War in Australia. November-December 1939. Lasting 1 month. 1 week and 1 day. Humans actually went to war with the emus. And lost. Cola Wars. The current Russia-Ukraine war. Star World. The war on drugs. What are you gonna do, shoot at the meth? The war on drugs. I mean, is there a single smart war? The war on drugs. Followed closely by the war on terror. Drugs clearly won their war. And terror is winning on all fronts. Grenada was pretty petty and dumb. A warning to any small nations that didn't want to be bled dry if resources with little return by globalist corporations. Any religious conflict, thousands dying over different fictional characters they think exists. The next one. War on drugs. every one of them.